Let's go overseas, check in some of the global cities where coronavirus has had such an impact. In London, NBC News senior international correspondent Keir Simmons. In Beijing, NBC News foreign correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer. And at the Vatican, NBC News foreign correspondent Matt Bradley. Welcome to you all. Keir, I want to begin with you. We got the good news yesterday that Prime Minister Boris Johnson was released from the ICU. What more can you tell us about his condition this morning?
Well, that's right. So he's still in the hospital. We don't know how long for, but he is no longer in the ICU. His dad, though, saying that he does need to take it easy, that it is going to be slow progress. So in a sense, the British government's still being run by the cabinet and not by the Prime Minister. And just to talk about what you guys have been talking about, the British government scientific advisor also saying that it is through testing, and there is a crisis of testing here too, that we will escape from this lockdown, and that it's going to take time. And just to give you a picture of the global data, Willie, and how the UK and the US fits with that, take a look at this chart showing that New York State, with around 163,000 cases, actually now has more cases than other parts of the world. Italy, 143,000, Spain, 153,000, China, 82,000. Another chart from the Financial Times, and you can see those lines on the chart, which are the numbers of deaths from coronavirus for the UK and the US, rising more steeply than they have in other countries at any other time. I mean, that's the global data picture that tells you just how worrying the situation is. And more global data just on testing, again, bringing home what you guys have been saying. They look at it in terms of numbers of tests per million. In the US, according to one website, 7,000 tests per million of the population. That is fewer tests than in Italy, where there has been this terrible crisis, than in Spain, where there has been this terrible crisis. And just another point from here in the UK that is being talked about, and it's important, I think, the difference between these two kinds of tests, the one that tests for the coronavirus itself, the other that tests for antibodies. Here in the UK and in many other countries, none of those tests have been authorized because they are saying they are very worried about whether they work. They have been authorized, at least one, by the FDA there in the US, but only a few countries around the world, Australia, Singapore, China, are also authorizing those tests because in many cases the tests have a success rate of maybe 93, maybe 94%. So the worry is about the antibody tests is that if you bring in the wrong tests, you get the wrong results and the wrong outcome.
Yeah, the UK having the same struggles with testing we're having in the United States. Keir Simmons in London. Keir, thank you very much. Let's go to Beijing, where we find Janice Mackey-Frayer. Janice, the lockdown in Wuhan was lifted a couple of days ago, that city of 11 million people where the coronavirus pandemic began. How is it working right now, and are there concerns about a second wave, perhaps, now that they have opened this?
Well, as China has been easing some of the restrictions across the country, and certainly in Wuhan, there is this worry of it triggering a second wave of infection, that with people, thousands of people now fanning out across China, that could chart new transmission routes for the virus and bring on this resurgence of cases. We've seen tighter restrictions over the past week to 10 days, and it's not just in China. It's in countries across Asia. We've seen borders tighten, flights being cut because of a surge in the number of so-called imported cases. These are people who were coming back into countries from other places, primarily the United States and Europe, places that are now at a higher risk for transmitting the disease. And with that, we've seen the numbers slowly tick higher. In Japan's case, we've seen them spike. And as a reaction, governments are tightening things even more. So here in China, yes, the lockdown in Wuhan has been ended, but there are still hundreds of millions of kids who are not in school. Factories are not running at full capacity. There are still people who are working at home. And a lot of businesses like gyms and swimming pools have been closed. And that's along with a lot of changes in the daily rituals here. And just to give you an indication of the protocols that have been put in place for people leaving Wuhan, Wuhan, people needed to be tested for the virus before they could book a train ticket or a flight out of the city. They were tested again before they boarded the train or the flight. Upon arriving in Beijing, where there's a cap on the number of people who can arrive on any given day, they're put into quarantine for 14 days, and they'll be tested again before they're allowed to roam freely. So these are the measures that China has in place. They're also toughening their tracking on asymptomatic cases, again, so they can have the data that they need to believe that the situation is truly under control, because right now, not even the authorities believe that the epidemic is completely clear.
All right, Janice Mackie-Frere in Beijing. Janice, thank you very much, as always. Let's move now to Italy, where we find NBC's Matt Bradley at the Vatican this morning. Matt, a stunning scene that we've already witnessed, the Pope conducting Mass to an empty St. Peter's Square. Today, of course, is Good Friday, Easter on Sunday. What is Easter going to look like at the Vatican this year?
It's going to look, Willie, a lot like this. Nobody there. And it's going to be the Pope, once again, cutting a very lonely figure, doing his Mass, probably indoors, once again, without any celebrants. He's going to be celebrating basically alone, just a few other kind of officiants, as we would call them. But instead, it's going to be beamed to millions and millions of people throughout the world. And that is what Pope Francis has been calling the creativity of love. That's the maxim that's been bandied about in the Vatican here. They're trying to reach as many people as possible. And, this isn't just about the actual observance of these holidays. This is Easter. This is the biggest day of the year here. This is about the charities as well. Those charities are suffering. And as you've been talking about on your program, there's going to be, after the medical crisis passes, everybody's expecting an economic crisis. And this institution is no different. They're going to be girding for a massive wave of unemployment. They're going to be trying to create an emergency fund to bring up their hospitals, their schools, their homeless shelters that are going to be needed more than ever after the actual medical crisis passes and the economic one hits. But, there's some positive thinking that's been going on here. People at the Vatican, they're hoping that this Easter is going to see what we've heard is a resurrection of faith. And I spoke to a senior official at the Vatican, and here's what he had to tell me.
There will be a day, there will be a new spring, and then we will come out of this emergency. We can really have a more human society, a more human humanity, with people more capable of healing, to more ready to help the poor and to reinvent even the economy.
Yeah, so the Vatican is clearly hoping that this whole crisis actually reignites, sort of renews an affinity for this very ancient institution. Willie?
NBC's Matt Bradley at the Vatican for us this morning. Matt, thanks so much. Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.